So I actually did write a blog on this. If anybody hasn't had a chance to read it yet, it's just if you go to enable.com/blog, it's called 4 Ways to Plan for Your MSP Growth in Challenging Times. If you haven't had a chance to read it, kind of giving you the Coles Notes version of it, because whether an economic downturn is on the horizon or not for our industry, we should be using this period as an opportunity to reflect on how our business is currently performing and making plans regardless of how we can improve it over the next 12 months and beyond that. Because hoping that your MSP is going to survive a recession, not really a strategy for success. But proactively taking the necessary steps to create, what John Pagliuca tells when he did his keynote at Empower, taking steps to create a recession resilient practice is what every MSP should be striving for, especially during these uncertain times. So there's really, and I think I actually have 5 ways if I count my bullet points, 1, 2, 3, so 5 ways where you can help make your business recession resilient. And I think the first one is really understanding your metrics. So here you're looking at, what sort of key performance indicators are you tracking, those KPIs, so that you can monitor your performance, against, and then measure how your MSP is progressing year over year. Because it's only by setting a baseline and measuring your improvements against that baseline that you're going to be able to get the empirical evidence that's needed to honestly assess how your business is really doing and where improvements will need to be made. And one of the most important metrics that I really talk about in my boot camps is this concept of this MSP burn rate. And so if you haven't heard me kind of talk about the burn rate before, this is really the amount of money that you need to cover all of your operating expenses and all of your overhead costs, over, a certain period, whether it's a month or whether it's, kind of a year, but most are calculated over a month. So at a minimum, the goal is to achieve a burn rate of at least 1, meaning that the recurring revenue that's generated by your managed services line of business is sufficiently covering all of your operating expenses and your overhead. Because once you've met this goal, then every dollar earned after that automatically goes to your bottom line. But if you happen to be below your burn rate, meaning that it's less than 1, it means that you're not generating enough recurring revenue to cover your expenses. And so you're really just relying on the non-recurring revenue, the projects, the hardwares, that kind of thing, to kind of pay your bills and break even. So every MSP should know where they stand, with respect to their burn rate, because that's going to help you really set your priorities and help drive the decisions that are going to be needed to improve this metric. And there's really only 2 ways in which you can improve your burn rate. If you happen to find that you're less than 1, you have to work to improve your monthly recurring revenues, and you have to work at becoming more efficient to help reduce your costs. So again, if you haven't heard me talk about this concept of burn rate, I talk about it in a boot camp called Cracking the Code to Growing Your MSP. You can find it within the MSP Institute. When you go in there, scroll down to the Head Nerd section, click on my photo, and then it will bring up all of my boot camps. And so it's the boot camp that's called Cracking the Code to Growing Your MSP, and I provide a good breakdown on what that means and how you can go about improving that. So another way to help make your MSP recession resilient is prioritizing the standardization of your technology stack and leveraging automation to control your costs. So really, to help make your MSP recession resilient, you need to do what you can to control your costs. Supporting multiple tool sets that seem to accomplish the same set of tasks, accomplishing mostly similar outcomes, doesn't really make sense. And they're working against you by driving up your costs. Because having your team manage, 3 or 4 different AV products or 3 or 4 different backup products, that can have a profoundly negative effect on your overall operational efficiency, and it can impact your buying power. Like when I was in sales, I would often have partners ask me, what kind of deal they could get because they needed 15 AV licenses. And then they would be a little disappointed when I told them that I really couldn't do anything in terms of getting them a deal because 15 wasn't really considered a significant volume. It wasn't a volume deal. But when I kind of broke it down, I started talking to them a little bit more about that. I would find that they were actually managing a few other AV products as well within their tech stack. And 15 users for this particular AV that we sold, it was considered a big deal for them. So they often fail to see, that they were eroding their own buying power, kind of by spreading their AV purchases across multiple different vendors. And when you give up your buying power because you're dealing with a number of different vendors, that's where you end up hurting your own profitability. Whereas if you consolidate and if you standardize on just one product with one vendor, you can have those discussions around volume deals because of the increased volume that you've achieved by kind of combining all of the other software solutions together. In addition, by prioritizing the standardization of your technology stack across your customer base, you're also creating centers of excellence in regards to your technicians. And that's also going to help control costs, because then they only need to be trained on and support and be proficient in one set of tools and not multiple tool sets. And you also want to make sure that that your team is leveraging, all of your tool sets automation capabilities, because when you have technicians performing tasks that could easily be handled via automation, you're incurring additional, kind of unnecessary costs that will end up negatively impacting your profitability. So if a recession does materialize and revenues are impacted, working to control your software and your labor costs now via standardization and automation will help to minimize the impact of your MSP. And if anybody hears vacuuming, that's my cleaner upstairs who seems to be vacuuming my hard floors right now. So hopefully it's not affecting kind of the audio quality. But if you hear kind of that, any background noise, that's what's happening at the moment. All right, number 3, how you can make your business recession resilient. And it's maximizing the amount of recurring revenue that you're generating from your existing clients. And so here we're talking about doing what you can to increase the share of wallet that you have with your existing clients and working to strengthen those relationships so that you can identify, upsell and cross-sell opportunities with your existing clients. Obviously, winning and signing on new clients, that's something that we want. But if we are heading into a possible recession, then you really want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to kind of strengthen the ties that you do have with your existing clients by continually trying to upsell and cross-sell to them. And I talked about this tactic, when I was in sales and in account management, and I talked about this at Empower in my breakout sessions. And obviously, if you've attended some of my boot camps, I talk about creating what I call a services white space matrix. And this is where you would list out, all of your customers and all of the services that they're buying from you to help you identify, where your sales opportunities are within your existing clients, by highlighting what services they're currently not buying from you, because that's letting you know where you're leaving money on the table. And that can then provide direction, and that can help you focus on which clients you should be proactively engaging with so that you can work to get those missing services added onto their monthly contract. And by doing what you can to maximize the amount of recurring revenue that you're generating from your existing clients, that's going to work to make those clients stickier to your MSP. It's going to help improve your retention rates, and it's going to help you, it's going to put you in a better financial position. Also, you may want to consider new markets and new sources of revenue to pursue. Maybe as an example, moving up market into co-managed. And hopefully everybody understands what I mean by co-managed. If you have never heard of that term, just throw it in the question panel and I'll address it. I know I've talked about co-managed quite a bit, but if there's anybody that's not sure what I mean by co-managed, just kind of throw some question marks up there. But and so because of this, I'm actually working on 2 boot camps around this topic, specifically as a response to help MSPs better prepare and take advantage of the changing economic landscape, helping them to be more proactive instead of just kind of sitting back and seeing how things go. And so those boot camps, I'm working on them now. They're going to be ready to go in probably, I think it's early March, and then the second one will take place in April. So the first co-managed bootcamp is going to talk about the different programs and the pricing for them that are the kind of the top co-managed offerings that we're seeing partners go to market with. And then April session is going to be a part 2, and I'll talk about kind of the go-to-market and sales strategy so that you can go out and market and promote that. So some new content that's coming in 2023, because the market timing is ideal for many MSPs to consider moving up market and embracing that co-managed approach, because there is a significant talent shortage when it comes to IT and especially specialized IT staff at that, especially in the areas of patch and backup and security. So these are services that, your MSP can step in and begin offering to mid-enterprise companies to help, kind of reduce their workload, reduce their risk from the internal IT team who may not have enough time or the knowledge or the skills or the resources to do these tasks themselves and do them correctly and thoroughly. And then lastly, monitor the alignment of your sales and marketing strategy to boost their overall effectiveness and to better support your lead gen efforts. If a recession is looming, this is not the time to slash your MSP marketing and sales budgets to save on costs. So as I said, that was kind of a trick question when I asked if who's going to be spending more, the same, or less on marketing with the possible recession coming. So loved it that, half of you are going to spend more and half of you are at least keeping the same. I'm glad I didn't see anybody say that they're going to spend less, because I think cutting your marketing budget can actually bring about more harm than good, because cutting marketing costs, that's just going to decrease your brand awareness. That's going to, reduce your search ranking. It's going to help to work against you by decreasing your brand loyalty. And it's going to leave room for your competitors to come in and fill that void and capture some of your market share if you decide to kind of take your foot off the pedal. Because marketing during a recession, it's important. And so if anything, I applaud the 50% that said that they're actually going to increase their marketing during this time. And especially if you're focusing on doing what you can to build your online presence. And you also want to make sure that you're continually evaluating your sales and marketing to ensure that they're properly aligned to support each other. And what I mean by this, you want to continue with your email marketing, your direct mail, your educational webinars, seminars, newsletters, whatever you're having to do today. But you want to make sure that you have your sales development representatives, those SDRs, the ones that are doing the cold calling, to follow up immediately afterwards with a proactive outbound calling program that can really work to help commercialize those marketing efforts. Because marketing alone can only do so much, and it will be greatly enhanced if you can supplement those efforts with a follow-up call that's conducted by your appointment setter or your cold caller afterwards. Because a recession, it's as some painful it could be, it's really only temporary, right? It's not going to last forever. We're going to come out on the other side of this. And if you continue with your marketing strategy during a recession, it's going to help lead you to develop a stronger market presence and increased market share at the end of it, especially if your competitors were of the opposite mindset and they did end up kind of cutting their marketing and sales budgets as preventative measures.